Steve's POV. If I had known a stupid student retreat would ruin my winter break, I'd have faked pneumonia. I only came because my best friend Maya wouldn't shut up about bonding and making memories. Translation. She wanted someone responsible enough to make sure she didn't end up face first in the snow. So here I was, trapped in a creaky bus crawling up a mountain road, sketchbook balanced on my knees, surrounded by students way too excited about team building exercises. The worst part wasn't even the weather, it was him. Chase Turner, 21, business major, captain of the intramural soccer team, and self-proclaimed gift to humanity. Everyone else called him the campus Casanova. I called him headache material. He was 3 rows ahead, leaning over the seat to flash his blinding grin at some girl. She giggled like he just whispered the meaning of life instead of whatever recycled pickup line he pulled from his collection. That was Chase in a nutshell. All charm, all surface. And yet, my eyes kept drifting up from my sketchbook to him. Ugh. Maya jabbed me in the ribs. You're glaring again. I'm not glaring, I muttered. Uh-huh. You've been doodling the same crooked line for 10 minutes while you death stare Turner's stupidly perfect hair. I slammed my pencil down. I wasn't staring at his hair. Sure, totally believable. Maya smirked. Honestly, you should thank me. If the snowstorm doesn't kill us, maybe Chase will. I rolled my eyes so hard they almost fell out. We finally reached the lodge, a rustic, slightly run-down cabin that smelled like pine and wet socks. Students spilled in, claiming bunks, dragging sleeping bags, gossiping. I found a corner and pulled out my sketchbook, determined to disappear. But of course, fate had other plans. Chase Turner noticed me. I don't know how. I wasn't doing anything exciting, just sketching the worn-out fireplace. But suddenly his shadow fell over me. Hey, he said, all easy charm. Steve, right? You're Maya's quiet little friend, Little? My jaw tightened. Yeah, that's me. Maya's quiet little friend Chase grinned as he'd just poked a bear for fun. You always draw stuff, huh? Ever thought of sketching me? Not unless I run out of paper. His smirk faltered for a half second before snapping back into place. He leaned down, lowering his voice. Ouch, I like you already. I hated how my ears burned. Before I could retort, the storm hit, hard. Wind howled, snow hammered the windows, and in less than an hour, the power flickered out. Students panicked. Faculty tried to calm everyone down. Then came the worst announcement of the night. Some of the heating units are down. Sleeping gear is limited. You'll need to pair up. My stomach dropped. Maya immediately called dibs on a spot with her crush, abandoning me faster than you can say betrayal. By the time I looked around, the only person left without a partner was, of course, Chase. He gave me that devastating grin. Guess it's you and me, Picasso. No way, I blurted. I'll sleep on the floor. The floor's freezing, and you'll die. Can't have that, he winked. Besides, I promise not to bite. He absolutely said that loud enough for people nearby to laugh. My face went nuclear red as Chase slung an arm around my shoulders and dragged me toward the last sleeping bag. And that's how I ended up zipped inside one cursed nylon cocoon with the campus Casanova. His body pressed against mine, warm and smug. My sketchbook was somewhere on the floor, forgotten. My heart was hammering like it wanted out of my chest. Relax, Steve, Chase whispered in the dark. It's just a sleeping bag. Unless you want it to be something more. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to know if his heart was beating as fast as mine. But mostly, I wanted the snowstorm to end. Later that night. If hell had a Yelp page, I'd leave a review about this sleeping bag. I don't know who invented it, but clearly they didn't expect 2 full-grown men to cram inside. My knees were jammed against Chase's thighs, my arm was twisted at an unnatural angle, and every time he breathed, his chest brushed against mine. Warm, steady, infuriating. "Stop moving," I hissed. "You stop moving," he whispered back, his breath ghosting over my cheek. "I'm trying to breathe." "So am I." He shifted, the zipper tugging against my side. "Damn, this thing's tighter than my skinny jeans." I groaned. "Do you ever shut up?" Chase chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest straight into me. "Not really. Most people don't complain, though. Usually they like it when I whisper this close. I'm not most people." "That's what I like about you." There it was again, that smug charm, perfectly timed. Except his voice was softer this time. Almost honest. I stared, stubbornly at the nylon ceiling, willing my heartbeat to slow down. It didn't help that Chase smelled like expensive cologne mixed with wood smoke, like he belonged in one of those glossy magazine ads. Meanwhile, I probably reeked of pencil shavings and awkwardness. Minutes crawled by. The storm outside rattled the windows, howling like some pissed-off beast. Chase shifted again, pressing even closer. "Cold?" he asked. "No." My teeth chattered on cue. He smirked. I could feel it against my temple. "Liar!" His arm snaked around me under the pretense of sharing heat, pulling me closer. I stiffened. "Chase, relax, Picasso." "I'm not gonna try anything." He paused, then added mischievously, "Unless you want me to." I elbowed him in the ribs. Hard. He just laughed. For a while, neither of us spoke. The storm filled the silence, loud but somehow distant. Against my better judgment, I started to notice things. Things like how his breathing evened out, how his body pressed against mine was warm enough to chase away the chill, how his hand, resting lightly on my side, wasn't teasing anymore. It was just steady, comforting. "Do you ever get tired of it?" I asked suddenly, surprising even myself. "Of what?" His voice was low, curious. "Being, Chase Turner, the Casanova, the guy everyone wants." He didn't answer right away. When he did, his tone wasn't cocky. It was quiet. All the time. I turned my head, stunned. Our faces were inches apart. His eyes, usually bright with mischief, were softer now, vulnerable. "Don't look at me like that," he muttered. "Like what? Like I'm not a joke." Before I could say anything, the sleeping bag jerked open. "Holy crap!" Maya's voice pierced the darkness. "Are you guys spooning right now?" I nearly launched myself out of the bag. Chase, of course, stayed perfectly calm, smirking up at Maya like he'd been caught in the act on purpose. "Sharing body heat," he said smoothly. "Survival 101. Maya cackled. "Right. I'll let you two survive in peace." She winked at me, whispered something about rom-com cliches, and disappeared back into the hallway, leaving me mortified, and Chase looking entirely too pleased with himself. "Sweet dreams, Picasso," Chase murmured. I pulled the sleeping bag over my head to hide my burning face, and despite every bone in my body screaming that this was a disaster, I didn't hate it as much as I should have. Second day of retreat. By the next morning, half the retreat seemed to know about the sleeping bag incident. The storm was still crazy, but now everyone seemed to have reconciled with the situation, except me. I'd barely finished brushing my teeth when some guy in the hallway grinned at me and said, "So, how was spooning the Casanova?" Loud enough for everyone to hear. My toothbrush almost lodged in my throat. I wanted to crawl into the snow and freeze on the spot. Chase naturally took it in stride. He strutted into breakfast like the rumors were free publicity. Every time someone teased us, he winked. At me, in front of everyone. "Relax," Maya whispered, grinning. "At least they don't know you elbowed him in the ribs," I groaned into my oatmeal. "Why do I feel like I'm the punchline?" "Because you're funny when you're flustered." Maya patted my shoulder. "Also, Chase is obsessed with you." I choked again, this time on oatmeal. He is not. Maya just raised an eyebrow. Unfortunately, he wasn't the only one paying attention. Lila showed up. Of course she did. She was Chase's most infamous fling. Gorgeous, confident, and one of those people who could cut you to pieces with a single smile. She cornered me by the fireplace while Chase was off being charming with some soccer bros. So. She crossed her arms, eyes glinting. You're the new flavor. I blinked. Excuse me? She smirked. Don't play dumb. Everyone knows Chase doesn't do serious. He flirts, he conquers, he moves on. You seem sweet, so I'll give you some free advice. Don't fall for him. Her words landed like ice water down my back. And worse, part of me believed her. I mumbled something like, thanks, and escaped. But the seed was already planted. The rest of the day, I avoided Chase. I sketched in corners, stuck close to Maya, tried not to think about the warmth of last night. Then Aaron arrived. Well, technically, he'd been at the retreat all along, but I hadn't noticed until Maya dragged him over during lunch. Aaron was Maya's cousin, a tall, broad-shouldered guy with kind eyes and a crooked smile. Back in freshman year, I may have nursed a tiny, harmless crush on him. Steve, right? Aaron said warmly. Maya's told me about your art. You're incredible. My face heated. Compliments always scrambled my brain. We ended up talking about sketching, about favorite movies, and even about the storm. I laughed more than I had in days, and that's when I felt eyes burning into me. Across the room, Chase was watching, not smiling, not smirking, just staring. Jaw tight, hands clenched at his sides. Later, when I slipped away to the hallway, he followed. So, Aaron, huh? His tone was sharp, nothing like the playful teasing I was used to. What about him? You sure seemed cozy. I frowned. He was just being nice. Nice. Chase let out a bitter laugh. Right. Because guys don't flirt when they lean in like that, hanging on your every word. You sound jealous. Maybe I am. His eyes flashed. You've been ignoring me all day. Then suddenly you're laughing with him like... He broke off, running a hand through his hair. What gives, Steve? My chest tightened. The rumors, Lila's warning, his reputation, they all swirled together until I snapped. You don't get to be jealous, I shot back. I'm not your snowstorm entertainment. His face went still. For a second, I thought I'd gone too far. Then he stepped closer, voice raw. You think that's all you are? God, Steve, you don't get it. I haven't cared this much about anyone in years. My heart stuttered, but before I could reply, he shook his head, muttered something I couldn't catch, and stormed off, leaving me frozen in the hallway, wondering if maybe, just maybe, I'd been wrong about him. Third day of retreat, I didn't make any attempt to talk to Chase after our last small clash, and, for the shocker, neither did Chase try. But his eyes followed me the entire day around the retreat, zeroing in his gaze whenever I talked too long with a guy. By night, the storm wasn't letting up. The wind howled so hard it rattled the cabin walls, and the faculty made the announcement we'd all been dreading. The heating system is completely down, one of them said, bundled in 3 layers of scarves. You'll need to huddle together for warmth until morning. Cue chaos. Students scrambled like penguins trying to pair off, dragging blankets and sleeping bags into clumps. I figured I'd wedge myself next to Maya and Aaron. It would be safe, neutral, no Chase Turner involved. Except Maya had other plans. She grabbed me by the shoulders, steered me across the room, and shoved me toward Chase, who was leaning against the wall looking infuriatingly calm. Figure it out, idiots, Maya whispered with a grin, then darted away before I could strangle her. Convenient, Chase murmured, arching an eyebrow. Looks like we're survival partners again. I sighed, sinking down onto the floor as Chase dragged a blanket over us. His body heat seeped into me almost instantly, a betrayal of how badly I'd been shivering. Still mad at me? He asked quietly. Yes. Good. His lips quirked. Means you care. I glared, but he wasn't teasing this time. His face was serious, his eyes fixed on mine like he was peeling away layers I didn't even know I had. Minutes stretched. The room was full of chatter and nervous laughter, but under the blanket, it felt like we were in our own world. Chase's arm brushed mine, his knee pressed into my leg, and every accidental touch sent sparks racing through me. Finally, I couldn't take it. "Why me?" I whispered. "You could have anyone. So why waste your time on the quiet art kid?" He stared at me for a long moment. "Because you're the only one who looks at me and doesn't see a joke." The words hit harder than I expected. "Steve," his voice softened. "You think I don't notice the way people talk about me? The Casanova, the player, the guy who doesn't care? It's easier to let them believe it than admit that I'm tired." Of all of it, I swallowed hard. My chest ached, but not in a bad way. In a way that made me want to believe him. "Then what am I to you?" I asked. His hand slid up, cupping the back of my neck. My breath hitched. You're the only thing that feels real." And then his lips were on mine. It wasn't smooth or practiced like I imagined Chase Turner's kisses usually were. It was clumsy, urgent, like he'd been holding it back for too long. My hands curled in his hoodie, pulling him closer without thinking. Heat flared between us, drowning out the storm, the chatter, everything. When we finally broke apart, breathless, Chase rested his forehead against mine. "Still think you're just snowstorm entertainment." I shook my head, unable to speak. For the first time all weekend, I wasn't cold anymore. Next morning, back on campus, the snowstorm already felt like some surreal fever dream. Somehow the snowstorm had stopped, melting the snow enough for us to get out of there. One week, Chase and I were tangled in one sleeping bag like two idiots stuck in a teen rom-com. And the next, the world reset. The quad was slushy, professors were back to piling on assignments, and suddenly Chase was Chase again. The campus heartthrob. The guy who could wink his way out of late homework and still have the barista at Brewhouse slip him an extra cookie just because. And me? I was back to being the quiet art kid who got charcoal dust all over his hoodie and barely raised his voice in class. The shift hit me hard. It started at lunch. Chase had insisted I sit with him and his friends. "Don't hide in the art cave, Steve. You're with me now." I'd been nervous enough already, but then this girl, Jessica or Jenna or whatever, slid right into the seat beside him and leaned in like he was her personal armrest. "Chase," she drawled, twirling her hair. "Are you still hosting the pregame this Friday?" "Everyone's dying to come," and he smiled. That same cocky, lazy smile that had half the campus wrapped around his finger. He even put his arm on the back of her chair without thinking, and my stomach twisted like a bad pretzel. I stabbed my fork into my pasta so hard it almost snapped. He caught my expression, of course. Chase notices everything when it comes to me, which is almost more infuriating. He winked at me across the table like we were sharing some private joke, but all I could see was his hand brushing Jessica/Jenna's shoulder. By the time lunch ended, I'd convinced myself I was just another fling to him, that the snowstorm didn't change anything, that maybe I'd been stupid to think it had. The final straw came later that evening. I was sketching in the studio when I overheard a couple of guys laughing in the hall. "Can you believe Chase is actually hanging around with that art dude? Bet you $5 it's a dare. Or he's bored between hookups." Classic Chase. I froze, pen hovering over paper, heart pounding so loud I thought they might hear. That was it. The quiet little voice in my head that had been whispering, "He's too good at this. He's too practiced. You're just a novelty," suddenly roared to life. When Chase showed up an hour later at the studio, grinning with takeout in hand, I couldn't hold it in. "Did you have fun flirting with Jessica today?" I snapped. He blinked. "What? You don't even realize you do it, do you? The smiles, the touching, the way you just slip back into Casanova mode like none of it matters." My voice cracked. But the words kept spilling out. Was I just another snowstorm flinged to you? Another story for your collection. His smile fell. He set the takeout down slowly, like he was defusing a bomb. Steve. Number? It's not like that? Then what is it like? My hands shook. Because it feels like you're one person when we're alone and a completely different one the second we're back here. And I can't compete with Chase, campus heartthrob. I don't even want to. For once, he didn't have a quick answer. His jaw clenched, and he ran a hand through his hair, pacing like he was holding something back. You think you're competing? His voice was rough, almost angry. Steve, you're the only one He stopped himself, teeth sinking into his lip. You have no idea how much But I couldn't listen anymore. The hurt had already swallowed me whole. Save it, Chase, I muttered, shoving my sketchbook into my bag. I'm not interested in being your practice round for when you find someone who actually fits your type. I left before he could stop me. And for the first time since that stupid snowstorm, the thought hit me like ice in my veins. Maybe Chase and I were a mistake. A week in, I avoided Chase for 3 days. 3 whole days of dodging his texts, skipping our usual lunch spot, and burying myself in the art studio until my eyes stung from staring at charcoal lines too long. I kept telling myself I needed space, that I didn't care, but the truth, I was miserable. And apparently, so was he, though you wouldn't know it from the whispers around campus. By Friday night, the rumors hit me like a sucker punch. Chase at O'Malley's bar. Chase with his arm around a tall guy from the soccer team. Chase is leaving with him. I wanted to ignore it. I really did. But then I walked past the bar on my way home from the studio, and there he was, Chase, leaning way too close to some broad-shouldered jock with a beer in hand. He laughed at something the guy said, head tilted back, hair messy, the picture perfect heartthrob everyone adored. It felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I kept walking, fast. My breath was shaky by the time I reached my dorm, but my phone buzzed before I could throw myself onto my bed. Chase, I saw you outside O'Malley's bar. Where are you now? Chase? Steve, please, we need to talk. I stared at the screen until it blurred. Then I tossed it onto my desk like it had burned me. 10 minutes later, someone pounded on my door. Well, it wasn't that hard to. Guess that The quiet kid would obviously be at the dorm. Where else was I supposed to be? In Chase's arms, yeah, sure, until he decided to throw me and run. Steve, open up! His voice. Too close. Too raw. I didn't move. Come on, man, just let me explain. His tone cracked on the last word, but all I could see was that image burned in my brain. Him grinning at the soccer guy like he used to grin at me. My chest tightened. Go away, Chase, I managed, my voice hoarse. Silence. Then, if you don't want me here, fine. But don't think for a second you were just a fling. That guy you saw is just a friend, I swear. And I was just helping him by making the guy he likes jealous. Steve, please, you're the only person who makes me feel... He cut himself off, like the words were too dangerous. I'll prove it. Whatever it takes. His footsteps faded, and I collapsed onto my bed, fists pressed against my eyes. Because here's the cruel twist. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But every instinct screamed I'd just end up being another notch on Chase Turner's bedpost. And the worst part? If he'd asked to come in one more time, I would have let him. Instead, I curled up in the dark, trying not to think about the fact that the boy who made me feel like the center of the universe also had the power to break me completely. 3 weeks in, I expected Chase to have moved on. That's what guys like him do, right? Big smile, new fling, back to being the golden boy of campus. But he didn't. He showed up outside my art history lecture with a thermos of coffee and the exact blueberry muffin I liked from Brewhouse. Just stood there, leaning against the wall, trying too hard to look casual, but tapping his foot like his life depended on it. When I walked past him, he didn't chase me. He just held the muffin out. "I'm not leaving until you take it," he said softly. I should have kept walking, but my stomach growled, and his eyes were so damn earnest I caved. I snatched the muffin, muttered, "Thanks," and bolted inside. That became his thing. He didn't push, he just showed up, carrying supplies when he knew I had late studio hours, slipping me notes in my sketchbook like, "You draw the best when you're mad at me, by the way," waiting outside class with that sheepish grin that made my chest ache. And slowly, against my better judgment, I let him back in. It started small. A late night walk across campus when no one else was around. He cracked jokes about the squirrels being part of a secret cult, and I laughed so hard I almost forgot I was mad at him. Then there was the time he sat on the studio floor for 3 hours while I painted, just keeping me company. At one point, I caught him watching me instead of the canvas. When I asked what he was staring at, he said, "You, obviously. You're the masterpiece. I nearly dropped my brush, but we kept it hidden. That was the unspoken rule. No hand-holding in public, no sitting too close at lunch, no walking out of the dorms together. Because Chase had a reputation, and I wasn't about to be his next public spectacle. Sometimes, though, he'd test the line, like brushing his fingers against mine under the table in the library, or whispering something stupid in my ear just to see me blush. 'You're impossible,' I'd hiss, pushing him away. 'And you love it,' he'd whisper back, grinning. And damn it, I did. But even in those stolen moments, part of me still waited for the other shoe to drop, for him to get bored, for me to be proven right. So when he leaned in one night, eyes darker than I'd ever seen them, and whispered, 'Steve, I don't want to hide this forever,' my heart stuttered, because maybe, just maybe, Chase wasn't just playing a game anymore. A week later, secrets are slippery. No matter how careful you are, they always find a crack. For us, the crack was a vending machine. It was late, almost midnight, and Chase had dragged me out of my dorm after I'd been drowning myself in artistry for the upcoming art exhibition in school. Because starving artists deserve snacks. He fed crumpled bills into the machine, smacking it when it jammed. I was laughing, actual laughing, like the kind that left my stomach sore, when he turned around, grinning like an idiot, and kissed me. It was quick. A soft press of lips, nothing scandalous. But of course, that's when someone rounded the corner. "Holy crap!" a voice gasped. We both jerked back. It was Ryan, one of Chase's frat brothers, holding a Mountain Dew and staring at us like he'd walked in on a soap opera. "Dude," he said, blinking at Chase. "Seriously?" The art guy? I froze. Every nerve in my body screamed, run, hide, vanish. Chase didn't even flinch. He just squared his shoulders and said, "Yeah, the art guy. Got a problem?" Ryan mumbled something about minding his business and scurried off, but my stomach was already twisting. Next day. By the next day, the whispers started. Not cruel exactly, but curious. Chase and the art kid? For real? People stared when we walked into the cafeteria. Someone actually clapped when Chase sat next to me, which made my face burn. I hated it. All of it. "See?" I hissed that night when we were alone. "This is why we kept it secret. Everyone's talking. Everyone's looking at me like I'm some charity project. Steve," his voice was low, steady. "I don't care what they say." "Well, I do." The words came out sharper than I meant. I didn't sign up to be part of Chase's campus circus. The hurt on his face almost broke me. Almost. He took a step closer, hands clenched at his sides. "You think this is a game to me? That I'd risk all this just for fun?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. because deep down, I didn't know what to believe. He let out a shaky laugh, humorless, nothing like his usual teasing. Guess I was right the first time. You really don't see me, do you? And just like that, he walked away. I stood there, heart in my throat, watching him leave. And the terrifying part was realizing that if I didn't figure my crap out soon, I might lose him for good. Next day, I didn't sleep much last night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Chase walking away from me, jaw tight, lips pressed into a line I'd never thought I'd see on him. By morning, I realized something terrifying. I couldn't let this go. Not him, not us. I found him in the studio. Of course I did. He was leaning against the counter, sketchbook in hand, pretending to be focused, but the second I stepped in, his head snapped up. "Steve," he said softly. No smirk, no teasing, just him. Vulnerable, serious, and infinitely human. I started, but my voice caught. "You don't have to explain," he said, cutting me off gently. "I get it. I know it's scary. I know everyone's watching. I know you're terrified I'm going to slip back into my old habits. But I swear," his hands found mine, warm and steady, anchoring me. "I am not that guy anymore. I'm yours. I'm only yours if you'll have me." I stared at him, the lump in my throat so big I couldn't swallow. I didn't want to be the joke, or the guy you forget once the snowstorm ends." Chase smiled, soft and sincere. "Steve, I've been thinking about that snowstorm night ever since. Not because it was fun or cute, but because you mattered. You still matter. More than anyone has in a long time, I blinked, fighting tears, and then something inside me broke. The walls I'd built around myself crumbled like charcoal in water. I'm scared," I admitted. "Scared you'll get bored. Scared people are right, that I'm just a chapter in your story. And I'm scared you'll push me away," he whispered. "But I'm not giving up. Ever." That was all it took. I leaned into him, letting my forehead rest against his. "I don't want to push you away anymore." "Good," he murmured, arms wrapping around me, holding me tight. "Because I'm not leaving. Not now, not ever." We stayed like that for a long time, letting the world outside melt away, until I remembered something very important. "The exhibition?" I muttered, pulling back just enough to meet his eyes. "Right. The big day," he said, smiling like he'd just been reminded of a secret holiday. The rest of the week was a whirlwind of preparation. Chase didn't just stand on the sidelines. He helped me organize canvases, brainstorm display ideas, and even helped me with lighting, making sure every piece looked perfect. And of course, he teased me mercilessly whenever I stressed too much, like when I nearly cried over a smudge on my favorite piece. But this time, the teasing didn't sting. It felt like Home Art Exhibition Day. The gallery was buzzing, but it didn't matter. Not really. Because this time, I wasn't alone. Chase stood beside me, hand warm in mine, eyes scanning the room with that grin that used to make me panic. Only now, it wasn't flirty or teasing. It was proud. Proud of me, proud of us. And then he did it. He leaned close, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. "Everyone can stare all they want. I don't care. This is my guy." I blinked at him, stunned. "Your guy?" "Only my guy," he said, squeezing my hand. "I don't care about titles, fans, admirers, or the whole Casanova reputation. None of that matters anymore. Not when you're standing right here, heat spread through me. My chest felt tight, but happy, like it might burst. The entire snowstorm retreat, the sleeping bag, the secret moments, the fights, it had all led to this. This man, this moment, this fiery bond of love we'd built. Maya appeared at just the right moment, bursting in from the back like she had a sixth sense for romantic drama. "Oh my God, look at you two! Finally!" She clapped like a cheerleader on a sugar high. I was about ready to chain you guys together myself if Chase didn't stop being such a dumb flirt. Chase laughed, and it was genuine, not smarmy. Hey, Maya, care to step aside? My boyfriend and I have some art appreciation to do. I shoved him playfully. Boyfriend? Really? Really, Chase said, eyes sparkling. The only one I want. People around us whispered, but I didn't care. Chase was there, proudly flaunting me like I'd just won the most impossible award in the world. And maybe I had. Winning him over was harder than any art critique, any brushstroke, any sleepless night. The exhibition itself was a triumph. My paintings, my sketches, my chaotic, beautiful vision of the world, all lined the walls. And through it all, Chase stayed close, offering quiet commentary that made me laugh and blush at the same time. By the end of the night, Maya pulled me aside. See? Told you guys couldn't stay apart. Snowstorm magic is real, dude. I laughed. Yeah, real magic. Chase appeared beside me again, draping an arm around my shoulders, resting his chin lightly on my head. This started in a sleeping bag, he murmured, and now look at us. Who would have thought a snowstorm could lead to this? I leaned into him, feeling the steady warmth of the man who'd once made me panic in tight quarters, now my safe place. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Good, he said, tugging me closer, because neither would I. And with Maya cheering like a crazy best friend in the background, the gallery lights reflecting off our smiles, I realized something. Love doesn't have to be loud to be fierce. It doesn't have to be flashy to be real. And the storm that started it all, it had melted into a blazing fire I'd never let go of. 2 years later. 2 years. It had been 2 whole years since a snowstorm shoved us into that ridiculous sleeping bag. And somehow, against all my doubts and insecurities, here we were. I was 21 now, finishing my last year in art school, and Chase, 23, had graduated business management. But it didn't matter what degrees we had. What mattered was us. He insisted I move in with him shortly after graduation. Well, more like he told me to, and I couldn't argue. His apartment was perfect, but he had outdone himself. One whole room dedicated to me. Canvases leaned against every wall, brushes and paints neatly organized. A little corner for sketching, and even a corkboard of our silly photos from the past 2 years. Your kingdom, he said with a grin that made my chest flip. And you're the jester, I shot back, though my heart was practically melting. He kissed me then, long, slow, claiming, fiery. The kind of kiss that reminded me why I'd fallen for him in the first place. Only now there was no fear, no secret, no jealousy. Just us. I pulled back enough to breathe. I can't believe this is real. It's real, he whispered, forehead pressed to mine. Every single bit. And I don't care who admires me anymore, Steve. You're the one who matters. Only you, I laughed, half in disbelief, half in happiness. Guess I'm stuck with you forever, huh? Forever, he confirmed, tugging me back into his arms. And there, in our little, chaotic, perfect apartment, surrounded by my art and his warmth, I realized the snowstorm wasn't just a night of chaos. It was the start of a lifetime of fiery love, stolen kisses, laughter, and messy, wonderful togetherness. I kissed him back, hard and hot and entirely mine, because after all we'd been through, there was no better place to be. The end. If you were trapped in a snowstorm sleeping bag with your crush, like Steve, would you freak out, flirt back, or totally panic like him? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.